After being revealed on Pokémon Day 2025, Pokémon Champions is set for release sometime in 2026. And as we approach the next Pokémon Day, where we're very likely to get a release date and a deeper look, now is the perfect time to go over 11 things you need to know before Pokémon Champions arrives. Because this isn't just another Pokémon game. This is shaping up to be one of the most important competitive Pokémon releases ever. Pokémon Champions is entirely focused on battling. Unlike traditional Pokémon games, Pokémon Champions is not built around exploration, gyms, or story progression. This is a battle-focused experience. Everything we've seen so far points towards this being a dedicated competitive platform, a place where players can jump straight into battling without needing to play through a full RPG first. There's no indication of routes, wild encounters in the traditional sense, or story campaigns being the core focus. Instead, the emphasis is on building teams, refining strategies, and battling other players. This alone makes Pokémon Champions fundamentally different from mainline titles like Scarlet, Violet, or Legends ZA. It's designed to remove the barrier between wanting to compete and actually competing. And it will be playable across multiple platforms. Pokémon Champions is confirmed to be playable on Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch 2, iOS devices, and Android devices. For the first time ever, competitive Pokemon battling will not be limited to a single console. You'll be able to build teams, battle from your phone, tablet, or Switch wherever you are. And this opens the door to more players than ever before. It also means practice, ladder climbing, and testing teams becomes far more accessible. You're no longer tied to sitting down at a console. Competitive Pokemon becomes something you can engage with anywhere, anytime. Pokémon Champions is officially scheduled for release in 2026, however we still don't have a specific date. Based on Pokemon's release patterns, the most likely moment for the announcement is Pokémon Day. This makes sense. Pokémon Day has been when major competitive and structural announcements have been made. Once that release date is confirmed, the competitive landscape will begin shifting almost immediately. Because Champions isn't just a side project, it's been positioned as the future of competitive Pokémon. Pokémon Champions has been described as free-to-play. This is another major shift from traditional Pokémon games. However, free-to-play rarely means completely unrestricted. There will likely be systems tied to progression, unlocks, or currency. That could include unlocking Pokemon, unlocking customization options, or accelerating team building, along with potentially cosmetic purchases. The key question here will be whether this remains fair and balanced, or whether progression systems slow down team building entirely. A big thing here is competitive integrity will be critical, because if players can quickly build viable teams without heavy restrictions, Champions becomes the most accessible competitive platform Pokemon has ever had. One of the most important confirmations is that Pokémon Champions will integrate with Pokémon HOME. This means you can transfer Pokémon obtained from previous games directly into Champions. Your past efforts will now carry forward. Pokémon you've bred, trained, shiny hunted, or used competitively before will still have value. This preserves connections between Champions and the broader Pokémon ecosystem. It also ensures Champions doesn't replace mainline games, but instead works alongside with them. Mainline games remain where Pokemon are discovered and obtained. Champions will become where they're tested. You will also be able to recruit Pokemon directly within Champions. Pokemon Champions isn't completely dependent on Pokemon Home transfers. You'll be able to recruit Pokemon directly within the game itself. This is essential for accessibility. New players won't be required to own multiple previous games just to compete. Instead, Champions provides its own pathway for building teams. Exactly how this works hasn't been fully revealed yet, but it likely involves progression systems tied to battling and in-game rewards. And this allows Champions to function as a complete competitive platform on its own. In-game currency. Pokemon Champions will feature an in-game currency known as Victory Points, or VP for short, and it's sketched around that these victory points can be earned through battling. Victory points will likely be used for things like recruiting new Pokemon, customizing your teams, unlocking features, or accelerating certain progress. This creates a clear progression loop. Battle, earn victory points, improve your team, and battle again. This system encourages active participation rather than passive progression, and importantly, it rewards competitive play directly. But as many things with Pokemon Champions right now, we don't have refined information about victory points, about the expenditure of these, and how trainers can go about obtaining them. But one thing we do know is you'll be able to fully customize Pokemon for competitive battle. One of the biggest barriers to competitive Pokemon historically has been team building, breeding for IVs, training your IVs, obtaining the right abilities, and optimizing movesets. Pokémon Champions appears to dramatically streamline this process. Customization will allow players to prepare Pokemon specifically for competitive play. This removes the time-consuming preparation and focuses purely on the battling and strategy. And this new change alone could bring a huge number of new players into competitive Pokemon for the first time, because the hardest part, getting started, becomes significantly easier. It has also been confirmed that multiple battle formats will be supported. Pokemon Champions will support both singles and doubles battles. Doubles, of course, is the official format used in the video game championships, but singles remains extremely popular across the community. Supporting both formats allows champions to serve the entire competitive player base, as well as maybe some other formats that we've had in previous games that could see a return. The flexibility makes it far more inclusive than previous systems tied to specific games. It also creates space for different metagames to evolve simultaneously. And Pokemon Champions will become the official VGC platform, and this is arguably the most important point of all. Pokemon Champions has been confirmed as the platform that will be used at the video game championships in San Francisco later this year. This is a massive shift, as for over a decade, VGC, or the video game championships, has been tied directly to mainline Pokemon games. Champions separates competitive battling into its own dedicated platform, and this allows for more consistent competitive environments, faster balance adjustments, standardized competitive infrastructures, and easy access for players worldwide. This positions Champions as the future of competitive Pokemon. It's not just a new game, it's the foundation for VGC moving forward. And on top of this, another exciting element that we could potentially see in Pokemon Champions somewhere down the line is the Omni Ring, which introduces the possibility of multi-battle mechanics coexisting. And this device appears to allow access to multi-battle mechanics. So far in trailers, we've just seen Mega Evolution and Terrestrialization, but the Omni Ring suggests something much bigger. It opens possibilities to mechanics from across Pokemon history to coexist in one place, potentially including Mega Evolution, Terrestrialization, Dynamax, Gigantamax, and even Z moves from Generation 7. And this would be unprecedented. It allows Pokemon Champions to serve as a true competitive hub, bringing together mechanics from across generations, and depending on how formats are structured, this could create entirely new strategic environments. Pokemon Champions represents a fundamental shift in how competitive Pokemon works. For the first time, battling is being separated from the traditional RPG structure and given its own dedicated platform. It's more accessible, more flexible, and clearly built with competitive players in mind. With cross-platform support, integrated progression, and its role as the future home of VGC, Pokemon Champions isn't just another Pokemon release, it's the next era of competitive battling. And as we get closer to Pokemon Day, we're likely to learn a lot more very soon.